According to psychologist and linguist Steven Pinker, language does two things. First, it conveys a message. And second, it negotiates a relationship type. While we're learning Japanese, this is also what we're seeking to accomplish. So let's see what we've learned so far. In the previous lesson, we learned about tenses. There were three main points. 1. Japanese doesn't have a future tense, so it's the same as the present tense, as in the case of orenji o taberu. 2. Japanese past tense just generally requires a stem change. We learned orenji o tabeta or orenji o tabemashita. 3. For the verb ski, to like, we make it formal by adding des and using the object marker ga. We'll continue to go through more conjugation types in the future, but trust us, understanding this will take you pretty far. So let's go back to our roadmap on learning Japanese. Now that we're done with tenses, we're going to dive right into negatives. Orenji o tabenai.
In English, negative forms requires a conjugated word such as don't or didn't. I eat oranges becomes I don't eat oranges. In Japanese, negative forms have their own conjugation. Orenji wo taberu turns into orenji wo tabenai. Once again, it's just as simple as changing the stem of the verb. Notice that the ru now becomes nai. The formal version is orenji wo tabemasu. Just simply turns into orenji wo tabemasen. Here, the stem turns from masu to masen. These two new stems, nai and masen, actually will cover most of the conjugations for the negative present tense. There is also the negative past tense though. Nai turns into nakatta, and masen turns into masen deshita. You should recognize that deshita is actually the past tense version of this that we previously learned. So this becomes orenji wo tabenakatta and orenji wo tabemasen deshita. So this rounds up all the forms we need for our future lessons. Present, future, and past tense form, negative and positive form. Let's review everything we have so far. Orenji wo taberu. Orenji wo tabemasu. Orenji wo tabeta. Orenji wo tabemashita. Orenji wo tabenai. Orenji wo tabemasen. Orenji wo tabenakatta. Orenji wo tabemasen deshita. So now, it's time for a real challenge. Do you remember the conjugations in the past lesson for I like oranges? Remember, we use ga instead of wo. Orenji ga suki. Orenji ga suki desu. Orenji ga suki datta. Orenji ga suki deshita. The negative form is very similar in this case to what we learned. I don't like oranges becomes orenji ga suki janai. The formal version is orenji ga suki de wa arimasen. Remember for the past tense, nai becomes nakatta. Arimasen becomes arimasen deshita. Following the patterns before, can you guess what the negative past form is? Pause the video and take a guess. Okay, let's see what you got. I didn't like oranges becomes orenji ga suki janakatta. And the formal version is orenji ga suki de wa arimasen deshita. And that's it with conjugations. Before we move on to more examples, let's just show you one more thing. You probably already noticed this, but in Japanese, there are no spaces between words. This is different from English, so you might think it's weird. Can you read this sentence? It's not that difficult once you get used to it.
So let's see how the negative form is actually used. Before we jump into the videos, let me introduce you to some new vocabulary words. Our first example is from an oldie but goodie Japanese drama, Great Teacher Onizuka. aka GTO. The first word is atashi, which means I and is only used by females. Last lesson, we learned another word for I, which is for males. That word was ore. Ore and atashi are only used in informal settings. The next word means not even a little and is pronounced as chitomo. And finally, we have the verb iya nakata. You might have noticed that the nakata verb stem here means that this verb is in a negative past tense. Iya nakata means you didn't hate it or you weren't disagreeable with it. The next show we'll cover is another all-time great hit, Hana Yori Dango, or Boys Over Flowers. The title is kind of long, so it's shortened to Hanadan. The first vocab word is extremely common and has multiple meanings. Mo. In this case, it means any longer. The next word is watashi, and you might recognize this word from cookie-cutter Japanese introductions. It means I. It's the formal version of the word I, and it's gender neutral. The final word on our list is the vocabulary word nigenai, which means to not run away. You should notice the nai at the end here, which makes the verb negative. Okay, enough of the pleasantries. Let's get into the videos.
なんか懐かしい。昔は月に一度パパの給料日がすき焼きの日でさ、ママと一緒によく作ったんだ。ここみたいな狭い部屋だったけど、私ちっとも嫌じゃなかった。
私、ちっとも嫌じゃなかった。
The meaning of this sentence is, I didn't hate it at all. You might have noticed that this sentence is missing any object or subject markers. The subject actually identifies herself, which is atashi, but she leaves out the wa, which would have been a subject marker. In spoken Japanese, this is pretty common. In the sentence, the object it is omitted. She's talking about how they used to live in a small house. And finally, the verb here is ijanakata, which takes the same form as the verb to like, which we learned early in our lesson, ski janakata. Except here, iya means the opposite of ski. Iya means hate or to be disagreeable. Remember, the nakata ending makes it the negative past tense form. Okay, let's watch some Hanadan.
押しこいてんじゃねえよ。私は逃げない。
もう、私は逃げない。
The meaning of this sentence is, I'm not running away any longer. You may have noticed here that the subject does identify herself and properly uses the subject marker wa. You might have also noticed that watashi is the formal version of I, but nigenai is the informal version of to run away. Recall that the verb stem for the negative formal version is masen, not I. So if she was talking in a formal setting, it would have been nigemasen. Girls often use watashi in all sorts of situations, even though it is the formal version. You can tell from this scene that she probably wasn't speaking formally to this guy, as she seems to hate his guts. Nigenai is the negative form of the verb nigeru, which means to escape or run away. Now don't run away from Japanese, because you're doing great.
You did a fantastic job today. I know we went through a lot of stuff, so let's review what we learned. There are 3 main points. 1. To make a sentence negative, you just change the stem of the verb. オレンジを食べる turns into オレンジを食べない。オレンジを食べます turns into オレンジを食べません。オレンジを食べた turns into オレンジを食べなかった。オレンジを食べました turns into オレンジを食べませんでした。2. The conjugations with the verb 好き is also very similar. オレンジが好き turns into オレンジが好きじゃない。オレンジが好きです turns into オレンジが好きではありません。オレンジが好きだった turns into オレンジが好きじゃなかった。オレンジが好きでした turns into オレンジが好きではありませんでした。3. There are no spaces between words in Japanese and you will get very used to it. In the next lesson, we will cover making suggestions so you can invite all your friends to eat oranges in Japanese. You don't want to miss it. So go get yourself some froyo for doing such a great job. Thank you for watching. See you soon.
I hope you liked the Japanese VideoCast Orange series on Japanese beginner grammar. If you want to see more of these videos, don't forget to go to our website at JapaneseVideoCast.com. Now here's a quick video on what we're about. Check it out. I'm going to tell you a story about how I learned 4 languages in 3 years. I tried every program available out there. Softwares, audio CDs, podcasts. These programs gave me a foundation, but it wasn't helpful in practical communication. Because I was interested in the culture itself, I started watching dramas and movies, and that's when my language ability exploded. Makes sense, right? Videos have always been the way to engage and captivate. Since you were a kid, your parents put you in front of a TV and you were happily entertained for hours.
Language is our mind's window to the world. And learning a new language allows you to literally step into another world. Being able to travel to new places where you can speak to and understand the world around you is the most amazing experience. When I was learning a new language, I wished that there were lessons based on TV shows I already enjoyed watching.
Well, now there is. We combine our love for video and our love for language and bring you an innovative language program that teaches you based on popular media from other cultures. When we travel, people are impressed we know and enjoy the same shows and movies that they watch themselves. Why are you spending so much of your time forcing yourself to learn vocabulary and grammar when 90% of communication is nonverbal? Learn mannerisms, speech patterns, and expressions by watching what people on the other side of the world are watching. Shows that provoke thought and inspire as well as entertain. Our lessons are formed with the latest neurological theories in mind to help you learn more effectively. Start with a short clip with no subtitles. Watch it again with voiceover and translation. And then read the line-by-line and word-for-word analysis for lines that you didn't understand. We have all the learning tools available, and if you need additional guidance, we'll be here by your side.
Natural and fun language learning.
No grammar homework, no vocabulary drills, just real conversation.
Sign up at JapaneseVideoCast.com today and watch our free trial lessons.